Have you ever looked at a plate of spaghetti and tried to follow an individual noodle using only your eyes? Is that just me? That's a little peek of what my creative process is like. There are parts that you can see that are conscious decisions that I make, and there are other parts that kind of twist and dip into the subconscious and are influenced there. Now, I recently released my first children's book, and I'd like to share a little bit of the behind the scenes of the story of the things that I did on purpose, and then the happy accidents that came out of the process. Now, it consciously began in 2010. When my oldest daughter was 5 years old, she went through a dinosaur phase, a lot like I did, although mine lasted longer. We loved drawing together, and one day we ended up doodling this little girl who helped dinosaurs. And something about this idea clicked with me. So I started to flesh out the characters a little more with help from my mini art director. She helped me choose the colors, which is why the girl's hair is blue, and also inspired the name. Her name is Lilly. And I had read somewhere that when you give a character the name of a place, it helps to bring them to life, like Indiana Jones, Corbin Dallas, Yosemite Sam. So for her last name, I used the town that I grew up in, Bristol, Rhode Island, and Lilly Bristol, Dinosaur Wrangler, was born. So we had our hero, we had her friends, and I came up with a little tagline. If you have trouble with dinos, or if there are dinos in trouble, call Lilly Bristol. And so I started to develop it a little bit more, but other things came up, and the concept was put among my other ideas on the back burner. So fast forward a few years later, that's the back burner. It's early 2013. I had been freelance illustrating for a few years, working on other people's books, when my wife and I decided that we would try an experiment. We would self-produce our first children's book, and decided that it should be Lilly Bristol. So I began brainstorming the first story, asking questions like, what kind of dinosaur would there be? How would Lilly help it? Maybe it's because I love alliteration, but the phrase tyrannical tyrannosaur trampling a town came to mind. And so I began thinking about what might have happened. And so I tend to think with words and pictures, so I started doodling. I put together a picture book layout and started mapping out the book, started sketching out different story points. And I'm really good with coming up with ideas, but when it comes to filling in between, it's more of a challenge. So once I had my main scenes figured out, I started to string it together, and here's what developed in a nutshell. One day, Lilly Bristol gets a call from the mayor of a small town who's having trouble with a big dinosaur. A T-Rex is making a huge mess, and they need her to come help. She arrives to learn that they've successfully chased it off, but she's surprised that they didn't ask what was wrong, because tyrannosaurs are usually sweet, and they only get angry when they need to eat. So she tracks down the dino to discover he's dealing with a dreadful dental dilemma. The tyrannosaur has a toothache, and with the help of the town's dentist, the problem is extracted, and the relieved dino helps clean up the mess. I like happy endings. Now, as the book started to take shape, it was interesting for me to see two stories develop. There was the story that you read, and then there was a story that you see. Now, while the visual story reflected what the words said, it actually added to them, and the characters started to develop a little more. For example, Anya, the pterodactyl, originally started off as Lilly's transportation. She brought Lilly where she needed to be. But as the story progressed, she turned into kind of a mother-hen character, kind of a keeping an eye out for Lilly and the saber-toothed kitty. So when my wife and I were looking through the book, I had finished all the art, and she commented that the character didn't convey the protective nature that she was showing. And so she suggested that I redesign it. And so I did. I went back and redesigned it and redrew her in all the scenes, including this one. The saber-toothed kitty was kind of obsessed with a T-Rex's tail, and here actually caught it and was going for a dangerous ride, much to the distress of Anya. I don't know the root cause, but over the years I had developed a fear of dentists. And as time between my last office visit continued to expand, I became more and more nervous about the thought of visiting one. So it was not intentional that I made a dentist one of the heroes of the story. I was actually basically encouraging kids not to be scared, that everything would be okay. And so I took my own advice and survived my first visit in over 10 years. And I guess I'm sharing this because if you or anyone you know is scared of dentists and loves dinosaurs, I have a great book for them. It works. Come see me or go to the Briar Patch. Now, one of the happy accidents that made me feel really smart was in the beginning of the story. Lily gets the call for help while she's brushing her teeth, and I wish I could tell you that this was a genius moment of foreshadowing, but it wasn't. I like unique ways to describe common things, and had heard the phrase "scrub those bones" as a substitute for brush your teeth, and bone rhymed with phone. So there you go. So once the story was finished, then came the most nerve-wracking part, which was sending the files to the printer. I was really nervous that I made some terrible mistake and had gone over the book countless times, had other people go through the book countless times, had talked to the rep how nervous I was. So I sent the files, and a few moments later she called me to tell me that the files looked great, except there was a mistake. I had paid so much attention to the inside of the book, I hadn't looked at the cover and had misspelled illustrated on the cover. But luckily she caught it, and I don't have a bunch of books with mistakes in them. So a little less than 2 months later, a delivery truck pulled up to our driveway and delivered a pallet of boxes. It was like an early Christmas gift for me. It was exciting to see an idea that was born in a batch of crayon doodles, now a book in my hands. The story on the surface is about a tyrannosaur with a toothache and a little girl who helps it. And I didn't plan for this, but if you go a little deeper, you uncover a story about the importance of compassion and communication. For me, it was a subtle reminder that people are a lot like spaghetti. There are parts that you can see, and there are other parts that kind of dip and twist beneath. And so that I need to assume less, clarify more, and always be kind. Thank you.